Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about nice guy syndrome. So I have lived with nice guy syndrome. It doesn't have to be a guy. Nice guy syndrome is just a term that we use, but it can apply to females or males. And I've suffered from nice guy syndrome a lot, or also people pleaser mentality. And also I grew up with a father who had a severe case of nice guy syndrome. So I want to just delayer this, and I want to tell you guys how I helped to integrate this, this nice guy people pleaser type of mentality. And first I want to say that it's important to tell you that I've done a ton of familial work around my family system. And this has been something that's really helped me to heal and integrate and become a better version of myself. It's important that I show up in the world with integrity, so I'm always doing the self-introspective work. It's a really important part of me. So I have forgiven my family for the ways in which they've showed me things that have contradicted what I felt to be true within my heart. So it's not their fault. They're also learning this from somebody in their life. And I've gone through that delayering process. So it's important for you to forgive the individual that you may be holding responsibility toward, and to understand that they too have just been brought up this way, and they have been taught this way, and they just maybe have not done the degree of work that maybe you are committed to doing for various reasons. So nice guy syndrome, right? So this is when we will sell ourselves short, throw ourselves under the bus, or literally cause a tragic accident to try to help someone else. And the reason I say that, and I'm giggling, is because this video is inspired by a walk that I just went on. And I have to cross a busy street to get to the park that I take my walk on daily. And there's a little, there's a little push button where the red light, the yield sign will initiate cars to stop so I can cross. It's a crosswalk. So what happened was I went to the crosswalk, and everybody traditionally just goes through the crosswalk unless the red light is flashing. People know to stop. Well, somebody decided to stop, and I know that you all have seen this if you drive or you pay attention at all on the road. Some person decided to stop because they saw me waiting there, and very politely and kindly and just, without really knowing what was going around them, oh, go ahead. And I said, go, because what I could see was something that they weren't paying attention to. They were only paying attention to doing the nice deed and seeing me and wanting to let me cross. They weren't really seeing the whole picture. So I could see the whole picture. I saw that behind them was this rush of cars that was going to cause a problem if this person just happened to be dead stopped in the road trying to let me go. So again, being kind is something, and being too nice and not really observing the greater picture or respecting, what may be around you is another story. And growing up with somebody as a parental figure who had this nice guy syndrome, too nice, extreme martyrdom, extreme self-sacrifice, was very difficult for me, because in the role of parents and parental figures, the father figure, the energy of the masculine, is to create structure and to hold a foundation and to be strong from a firm and loving type of way, not to be codependent or feel as though he's less than if he doesn't compromise himself all of the time. So what had happened was this quality, just generationally by proxy of, by virtue of me being his daughter, that infiltrated onto me. And I thought as though unless I was putting myself in harm's way to try to please others, I wasn't being kind enough. One other factor that led to this becoming something that was actually quite a big negative for me was a guilt associated with being firm, or a guilt associated for speaking up for yourself. I also grew up in a pretty fundamental Christian household from my father's perspective, where there was quite a bit of cognitive dissonance and unintegrated religious principles that were being taught to me. So what do I mean by this? I mean that it was a lot of kind of do as I say, but don't do as I do, and realizing this, this fear of God and this fear of hell because we're sinners, but then a lot of dissonance behavior or contradicting behavior through the role model who was teaching me this. So this is detrimental for a child. And again, it's nobody's fault. I see that my parents were young when they had me. They did the best that they could. They were taught these things, right? But it was my job to try to figure them out, to try to understand them and delayer them. So the too nice guy syndrome was actually something that became very, very toxic for myself. And somehow I felt as though I wouldn't be heard, seen, and loved if I didn't overplease other people and show up to do what they wanted me to do. Not everybody has this problem. Some people have the opposite problem where, they tend to be more egotistical and put themselves first, and it can even be more in a narcissistic type of way. So again, there needs to be some sort of balance. So one thing I see in the world right now is this polar relationship of what we call the narcissist and the empath, or the person that's in ego and the person that's trying to over people please, or the person who's being the asshole and the person who's being super, super soft and the doormat, right? So the asshole and the doormat syndrome, and really, or the codependent and the narcissist. So really, this is types of personality distortions that have accumulated over the years where two people are playing out an energetic role. And those two pieces, the codependent and the narcissist, or the super nice guy and the super dominating person, actually fulfill the very role that they're dysfunctional in by proxy of the other one embodying this opposite energy. It permits them to continue to be that way, if that makes sense. So, for example, in the case of my father, being the super nice guy, people pleaser, self-martyr, he has attracted and is married to now an extremely dominating, more egotistical, self-focused woman. And there's a lot of complications between the two, but again, one thinks that their way's right, and the other one thinks that their way's right. So there's this battle that plays out between them, and it's an energetic battle, and it's one that I've chosen to exit the stage from because it's really difficult, because each one is trying to prove why their way's right. And what's happening, or what is not happening, is a lack of trying to understand actually where the battle is coming from. And it's not the other, it's coming from within you. And when you work on healing that energy within you, as I did with this people pleaser mentality and self-martyrdom, and I'm only really loved, seen, and heard if I'm always the nice girl, if I'm always the good girl, right? So the nice guy syndrome can also be compared to the good girl syndrome. And it's something that starts in childhood, but it's something that continues to perpetuate later in life if you're not really observant of your patterns and behaviors. And often we can even get rewarded for these sort of behaviors, right? Jobs, or people can sometimes climb the ladder, the proverbial ladder in their career by sacrificing themselves and doing it the way someone else thinks it should be done. So it's all really about how you want to live your life. But for me, I have to say recovering from the nice guy syndrome and recovering from the good girl was something that was very difficult, because it was so ingrained in who I was growing up that I had to realize that even if I'm not always the good girl, number one, I don't have to polarize into being the bad girl. You'll see this a lot on people's healing journeys where they start to come to terms with their own accountability in something that they're facing. They'll polarize, okay? So, I've lived my whole life as the good girl, and now I'm going to be this super rebellious, dark kind of, woman who's very distant from connecting with others. You don't have to do that. It's just a way for you to explore a contrast, for you to somehow find some integration. So what is integration, and what did that look like for me? So it looked like a lot of self-healing, a lot of learning how to speak up for myself, and a lot of seeing where people would reject me if I was myself, but also understanding that it didn't matter what people really thought of me, right? Everybody's coming from their own perceptual vision or view of reality. They're filtering things through their own experience. And as long as I'm speaking from the heart, and as long as I'm speaking from the level of consciousness and awareness that feels true to me, where my ego's not involved, or I'm not trying to receive something, that's the best I can do in the moment. And if my truthfulness irritates somebody, or if my truthfulness disrupts somebody's life, or if my truthfulness hurts somebody, it's never intended, and I have to release some of the projected feedback from that individual and not take it so personally, right? So it was a big process for me to nurture and reparent my inner child, my inner little girl, and my inner little boy energy, who felt as though that they had to completely martyr themselves to be really truly seen and heard and loved. Because when you do that, you suffer. The other person suffers as well, but you suffer because you never fully self-realize, you never understand your worth fully, and you end up living a life where there's a lot of suffer and struggle. So my encouragement to you is start to look at your family history, forgive your whoever it may be who imprinted this onto you, and start to forgive yourself and start to realize that you are worthy, you are strong, you are powerful, you're speaking from your heart. Not everyone's going to like it, and that's absolutely okay. The more I came out as my authentic self, I realized that there was a lot of people who really loved me for that, and there was a lot of people who didn't, and it didn't matter. My job is to show up fully as myself with the level of consciousness I have in that moment, and to realize that everybody's on their own unique journey. So best wishes to you guys as you proceed forward with facing your possible nice guy syndrome or good girl syndrome. And I love you. Bye.